Hello, Lucy Pringle.
Hello, how are you?
Very good. Thank you so much for taking the time to discuss with us about crop circle. Apparently one topic that opens to a lot more topic and a lot more mysteries in this universe, doesn't it?
Well, it's a huge subject. It's got broad breadth, it's got depth, it's got height, it's got everything. It's really an area of scholarship and learning, and curiosity and fascination.
What got you started to start studying crop circles?
Well, I've always been interested in the unexplained, and when the crop circles started appearing, I just moved to Hampshire, and there they were right on my doorstep. And I was invited to be a founder member of the first academic society, which was called the Centre for Crop Circle Studies. And that was really my shooting point from there onwards. And I met a lot of people, and I started doing my particular area of research, which has now continued for 20 years.
So when were the first crop circle? When was your first one? When is the first one you've seen?
The first one I saw personally, and I visited personally, was one at the Ledgesford Head, which was just west of Gypsy Lane, and it was in 1990.
So those were the first ones that you started photographing back then. But when did people started seeing crop circles?
Oh, many years ago. The first recorded event was in 1678, and that tells the story of a farmer in Hertfordshire, and he had a field of oats which he wanted to be harvested. So he called in a man to mow these oats, and apparently the story tells us that the man was going to charge such a huge amount of money that the farmer said he would rather the devil took his oats, and that's why this particular it's depicted as a woodcut, because of course in those days you didn't have photography, and so it's called the mowing devil. And so the farmer went away and in high dudgeon. And that night, strange sounds were heard and strange sights were seen. And this is particularly reminiscent of what's happening in the fields today. You'll get what we call strange sights or luminosities, where you get lights hovering above a field. And very often, if you go in to that particular field the next morning, below where you've seen a light, you may find a crop circle. Anyhow, the farmer came back the next day. He went into the field and he found to his absolute amazement that crop had been laid down, as it says in the thing, in round circles. Apparently he was terrified. He took to his heels and he fled. But there have been many stories over the years. There have been stories of pilots in the First and Second World Wars flying over crop circles. And it's not just in England alone. As you know, you have them in France. And I think in a couple of years ago, the latest count was 54 different countries. So it's a universal phenomenon.
But it was seen in particular location. I mean, for example, in England, Stone Age is a kind of a mystical place, isn't it?
Well, Stonehenge is a special place, and anywhere around that area, Stonehenge is only about 12 miles away from the Avebury complex. And I think it was the archaeologist and historian in the 17th century who said if Stonehenge is a church, then Avebury is a cathedral. And we have many wonderful sacred sites in that particular area. But so far as the crop circles are concerned, a lot of geophysical surveys and research has been done, and it's found that 98.3% of all crop circles are on chalk land. And underneath the chalk, you get aquifers, which are underground springs or streams. And we know that when the phenomenon, the force, descends, we think from the ionosphere, which is an area beyond the stratosphere of huge atmospheric electricity, that the force hits the ground with hundreds of thousands of volts per meter, but only for a nanosecond, otherwise it burns the top. Then it's in some way it's attracted by the water. The electrical discharge is attracted by the water underneath the chalk, in the aquifers underneath the chalk. And one time when I was in the States giving a lecture, I asked one of the American researchers where the crop circles appeared. And he said, oh, well, over 90% appear on limestone. And that has exactly the same properties as chalk.
So what does that tell you?
Well, it gives us a fairly good idea that, again, maybe you might be saying, well, have you any idea how they form, or is there an intelligence behind it? My particular view on this is that the intelligence, and I do believe there is a consciousness or an intelligence, is all the forces of nature available to it.
What kind of state of mind do we need to be in order to understand crop circles?
Oh heavens, that is a question that depends on the individual. Some people understand them in their own way, other people understand them in another way. And that's absolutely fine. You can understand the crop circles in many ways. Just as I was saying at the beginning, it's a multidimensional subject, taking in all aspects of scholarship and learning. So if a scientist comes along, he'll understand it from the scientific point of view. If a theologian comes along, he'll understand it from his point of view. If somebody involved in legend and customs, and then they will understand it from their point of view. Some people might see it from a musical aspect, other people might see it from a mathematical aspect, other people might see it from a mythological aspect. But certainly these things have tremendous effect on people. This has been my area of research over the past 20 years, researching the effects of electromagnetic fields on living systems, which is to say what happens to us and what happens to animals, what happens to inanimate objects such as mobile telephones, camcorders, cameras, etc., when they go into crop circles or are in the vicinity of crop circles, even going so far as when people are listening to lectures, they can be affected by just looking at the crop circles because they are giving off vibrations. Mm-hmm. And people are sensitive to these vibrations.
You measured, you tested, you researched those vibrations in different ways?
Well, I've done many, many different areas of research. I tested brain waves, how the brain responds. I tested hormone levels. I have tested little bottles of water, which I bury, and then I retrieve them later on by dowsing. And these are sent to scientists all over the world who compare them against the control samples. And we found many, many anomalies. Obviously, there are quite a lot that are man-made, but that, so far as I'm concerned, is not the genuine phenomenon.
So there's two types of crop circles. There's the crop circles that were made by humans. There's the ones that were made, you're saying, by a higher dimension, by a higher type of beings, extraterritorial.
Well, not necessarily beings, because it's an unknown. This is an unknown area. By maybe an unknown force. Let's put it like that.
Okay. So you can clearly see the difference between the ones that were handmade and the ones that were that were made by the force.
No, not at all. No, you can't. And unfortunately, this has now become a very commercial circus, and people from all over the world come flocking over, and great big buses and coaches and things turn up at the sites of crop circles almost immediately after they have formed, and people come out like ants out of the buses, and they have no respect for the circles, and they sit down, and sometimes they destroy all the physical evidence that we as researchers are looking for. And this is a very great concern to the researchers, that we're no longer able to do the work that we were able to do in the early days due to all these people rushing into the circles and just sitting down. Sometimes they destroy the centers completely. Those beautiful centers, they just sit right down on top of them. And they don't realize that this is private land, and it's a farmer's livelihood. They seem to have no respect.
But they want so they're missing the point.
So far as they're concerned, they're not.
It's all a matter of perspective, isn't it?
Well, it is, but for a researcher, you want to be able to do research, and this is now being quite prohibited by the tourists.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of money for the local community. I think they are delighted because it makes a huge amount of money for the area.
So, but you've tested the. I was wondering if you tested blood, but we can talk about that a little bit.
No, that'd be much more difficult because you'd have to be able to do it fairly quickly and to be able to get somebody on board who is trained to do. No. That is much more complex.
But you've tested water. Is it in the same way that the Dr. Emoto tested water?
Well, not exactly the same way. No, I sent some to Dr. Jacques Benveniste, who I'm sure a lot of your viewers will know of in France. He was the man who discovered that water had a memory, and he lost his government grant in consequence in France because people poo-pooed his findings, even though another lab had replicated these findings. And I knew him well. He was a very, very clever man, but he became an embittered man. And it was so sad because just after he died, his work was recognized. And it's been very, very important work. And in fact, my work has actually contributed to his work. So we're on very important lines. And also we test for trace minerals. We test for all different, using different techniques.
And so what is for you, what did you discover from those research?
Well, we discovered that there were anomalies, changes within the bottles buried inside the genuine crop circles, as opposed to the bottles which just were buried outside.
And what does that demonstrate to you, to us?
Well, it demonstrates that there are things happening inside the crop circle which aren't outside.
And what does that mean?
Well, that's up to you. What do you think it means?
Okay. That's interesting.
That's not a silly question. Sorry.
No. I'm trying to see what you think, how you interpret that there is a higher vibration. Some people say that those crop circles are related to sacred geometry, and it's vibrational geometry, and that there is some messages that are being transmitted by another force. Is that?
Well, that's what we've been discussing already. That they contain different messages according to how people, their interests in them. There's huge, enormous geometry, wonderful mathematics. In the genuine ones, the mathematics is flawless. Now, mathematics is linked to music, and music gives off vibrations. And this is what is affecting people. When the force hits the ground, it leaves a residual effect. So when people go in, they're affected by the residual force. And it takes on many different forms. People can feel very ill and they can feel very well. There have been many cases of healing. There have been many cases of people not feeling well. It depends not on their spiritual quality or awareness. It depends, I think, on their own particular metabolism. And we all have very varied metabolisms, and they vary from day to day. They vary from morning to night. And this is why I do my hormone research, which is looking into the endocrine system. But this has a very spiritual quality to it. People have really wonderful experiences. When they go into crop circles, they go into other levels of consciousness, and it's almost as though you're entering other dimensions. And it's very, very beautiful. And some of the reports I had in are just so lovely. People have been so affected.
Yeah, like an altered state of consciousness.
Yeah, you go into the meditative state. You see, many of them are shaped like mandalas. And
Right.
those are particularly geometric patterns that are used in the East to induce meditation and trance-like states. And that is why people are affected when they watch them, when people are in lectures. And there was one time I was giving a talk in New York, and the girl came in, and she was in a very bad temper, and she wiped her finger at me, and she said, "You know, you're late starting." And I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, but I hope you'll get everything you need for my talk." Well, afterwards, she came up to me, and she was a changed person, and she came to apologize. And she said, "I'm so sorry." But she said, "I've had a really, really bad pain in my knee for many, many months now." And she said, halfway through your talk, the pain went, and it's still gone. This is all to do with vibration, interacting on a very personal level with each person.
Mm-hmm. But do you think those were intended to be stepped into and to feel this vibration and this altered state of consciousness? Or is there, by looking at them, a kind of puzzle and the message comes together and we're altered either way?
You can be altered either way. Yes, indeed. I always say that one goes into these things with respect. Just like when I go up to the stones, like at Stonehenge or Avebury, everything has their own electromagnetic field to it, or their own electronic signature. We all do, and in a way I sort of ask permission of the stones if I can go up to them. And I ask permission of the crop circles if I may enter. I think one treats these things with respect.
With all due respect, it feels like I have a crop circle in front of me. It's hard to get in with you as well.
Well, it's not, and I take a couple of tours each summer,
Yeah.
and I take people round the crop circles, and we have a wonderful time. And then in the evening, we have a private entry visit into Stonehenge, so that we can go right up to the stones and we can lean against the stones and get their frequencies and energy from the stones. And it's a beautiful day.
I'm very intrigued by this. I know a lot of people are, but do you think there is this other that there's people on other planets, that there is extraterrestrials, there is are we proving that right now? Is that the physical proof on our planet that they exist?
I wouldn't know anything about that, to be honest. So far as I know, that's an unknown quantity. Again, I think a lot of research is being done into that area, and I think many of the mathematicians say it is inconceivable that there should not be life on other planets, but what that life would be, none of us know. It might just be microbes, it might just be small cellular things, it might be the very, very sort of primitive life, or it might be highly evolved life. We don't know. But I do believe that, as I said right at the start, that there is a consciousness or something behind this, that it's not just due to natural forces. There's an intelligence, but what that is, I don't know. And over the years, as I grew up, I used to have all sorts of problems when I was very, very young. I wanted to find out where paradise was. And my governess and my parents couldn't really give me a proper answer. This was when I was about 4 or 5 or 6. And I thought, well, when I grow up, I'll find out what paradise is and I'll take everybody off there. And then I had the Loch Ness Monster. Then there was Einstein's theory of relativity. And then there was infinity. And infinity used to really bother me, because how could infinity not be finite? And then I came into crop circles. And I realized that we may never get the answer to the crop circles, that maybe they are ineffable. And since then, I've been able to live with infinity. I've been able to live with all sorts of things without really finding it necessary to have an answer. I'm happy with the fact that I don't know everything, and the fact that I never will know everything, and the fact that the more I know, the less I know. And I'm very comfortable with that. And I'm very comfortable with the people I meet who've got wonderful, wonderful brains, but have also got wonderful souls. And some of them, you can just see the light shining out of them. And it's all very beautiful. Yeah.
That creates definitely some peace by seeing life like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It does. Otherwise, I think you drive yourself mad.
Yeah.
Searching for an answer. Yeah, I did to start with. I found it, so frustrating. Why can't I get the answer? Why aren't the best brains giving me an answer? And I'd speak to everybody and I'd question them, and they didn't know. And, well, I didn't know either. But it's all right.
Yeah.
We don't have to know.
Yeah, I guess it's much bigger than us.
It's huge. It's huge. We're tiny. We're tiny in respect of that. It's rather like if you had a little tiny man inside your body, and he was running about your veins, and he'd say, "Oh, these are huge, great rivers running about in here," and then you might come to a little bit of, "Oh," he said, "that was a mountain." You know, it's all comparative. We're small, we're tiny, but we're all part of each other. This is the exciting thing. We're all part of each other. And that's why group souls and group meditations and things are important. And I do believe that we can influence the planet by our group meditations and things. I do believe that. But I think all these things have a part to play, you know. Science isn't only the answer. You have to have the spiritual side to it as well. And I think it was somebody called Professor James Lovelock who started the Prince of Wales School of Architecture in London. And he said, well, the science of today is only the science of the human mind. And that's very true. That has limitations.